Our e-mountain bikes are full of technology and they rarely fail these days. But if it doesn't work, it could be something super simple to sort out on the side of the trail to get going again. So here's a few things you need to be looking at in the event of a breakdown or a bike that won't switch on. So before we kick things off, I just want to mention that you definitely need to be prepared because your e-bike is a mechanical item and it can fail absolutely anywhere. It could be a mile from your house or it could be 10 miles from your house and it could mean a long walk home. And when it comes to those problems, some, as I mentioned, can be super easy to rectify on the side of the trail, but on the other hand, some can be really complicated. So it's worth, really thinking about how involved you want to get with these problems. If you get too deep into there, you could potentially ruin any warranty that you've got on that bike. So if you're in any doubt, head back to your local shop. So firstly, is your battery actually charged? Now we've all been there thinking that we've put our bikes on charge, but in fact something has happened and that charger has become knocked or dislodged during the night. Maybe your cat's run into it and knocked it over, or your bike slipped whilst it's being charged. Or take a look at the charge port. It could be full of gunk because you forgot to put that door shut and stop all that gunk going in, so you haven't got a good connection. And just remember, some bikes won't actually charge if the temperature is super cold too. And when you put your bike onto charge, you're usually going to get an audible and a visual notification that that battery is charging correctly. If you don't get this, then there potentially is a problem and you need to find that fault. And one last thing, just make sure your bike is fully charged before leaving off for that big trip. For your bike to turn on, you're going to need a connection from your battery to your motor. If you haven't got that connection, you're going to have a dead bike. So if you've had that battery out of your bike, just make sure that it's clicked into place properly, and of course that those contacts are nice and clean, ensuring you've got a good connection. On the older Shimano external batteries, you have an adjustable battery holder. Try adjusting this by removing the battery and sliding the upper mount down just a few millimeters to make that connection a lot more snug. Your charger can cause a problem when it comes to topping up your battery, so it's worth searching that these aren't the culprit of why your e-bike isn't working. Now, a charger, well, these can look the same depending on the electrical appliances that you've got in your garage, or maybe you've got some other electrical toys. And of course, the voltage needs to be the right one. So just make sure you're using that right charger to charge your e-bike up. And a charger also comes in a couple of different leads. You've got that connection that goes into the charger that goes to the plug socket. Just make sure that's in there nice and tight. And also just make sure that the lights are illuminated when you plug the charger in, and that LED changes color once that charging commences. And of course you've got that audible and visual notification from the bike that it's taken on charge. Water can be one of the main reasons that your e-bike isn't working, so you need to think back to maybe you've been a bit overzealous in washing your bike, or maybe you submerged it in some water that was a little bit deeper than what you were expecting. If you do find water in the system, best bet is to get that bike nice and warm, try and dry it out, get some water disperser on there, or maybe some compressed air just to drive all that water out. Once it's dry, you might have an e-bike that works again. All e-mountain bikes are going to have a magnet that is built into the rear wheel in some place, be it in the rotor itself or mounted on the spokes. Now this is a vital part of the system. If the bike isn't picking up that magnet from your back wheel's rotation, it will not work, or it will work very shortly, just for a few seconds, and then cut out. Now, if that magnet is in place, there's a few things you need to check. Firstly, that the magnet itself is nice and clean. And if you've got a spoke mounted version, just check when that wheel turns that it is in the parameters of the pickup on the chainstay of the bike. And if you're on one of those spoke magnets, just check that it hasn't slid down the spoke, either down towards the hub or towards the rim, and in fact that it's facing the correct way. If any of this isn't correct, that bike will not pick up that rear wheel movement. All the electrical components on your e-bike are joined by a series of leads and wires, and if there's a break or a bad connection on any of these parts, you're not going to get a bike that works. So starting at the top of the bike, I would inspect the leads that run from your head unit down to the motor. You have loads of different wires down here. So if you do have a plastic cover on there, this is obviously going to vary from motor to motor. Just whip that off and look for the wires that enter your motor area. Just check that these are nice and secure. Some of them do require special tools to make sure they are nice and secure, but just make sure there's no dirt or water in there. Again, that's going to cause a problem. Use some water disperser, get that water out of there, and just check all those connections. If they're all good, put the cover back on and move to the rear wheel. Now, most bikes are going to have a wire that runs out the back of the motor area to the rear wheel. Now, just inspect this, particularly on a full suspension model. Sometimes it can get pinched in the linkage or maybe even pick up on the tire and break it. But if that's all good, look again at that magnet on the rear wheel. Make sure that's nice and clean and is within those parameters to make sure it is picking up on the rotation of that back wheel. If any of those wires are broken or not getting a good connection, you can either try taking them out, cleaning them up, or it could be a case of replacing those wires with new. Error codes. Now, here's a can of worms that none of us want to open, and it would be quite foolhardy of me to tell you what every error code meant and the source of its problem with all the different motors that are out there. But with an error code coming up on your display, it generally means that the bike has detected a problem with the operating system. It could be the motor, battery, the rear wheel magnet, you name it, it's not happy about something, and it will be displayed on your head unit. It could be a series of lights displayed on your top tube depending on the model of the bike that you're riding. But usually a quick Google of the code that it's displaying could help you to the root of the problem. And maybe you need to take your bike back to the dealer to get it sorted, or it could be something super simple that you can fix on the side of the trail. So there we go, a few reasons that your e-bike might not be working. It could be something super simple to fix, or maybe you have to take it back to your dealer to get it sorted. But get involved in the comments box down below about any problems you've had on your e-bike and how you fix them. Did you have to take it back to the dealer or fix it yourself? Give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to us here on EMBN, and don't forget to check out that merch shop.